building on a beautiful Buffalo sunny spring day. Well, it's March 10th, and Andrew Cuomo is engulfed in 3 separate serious scandals, with now a total of 6 different women accusing him of sexual harassment. We're sadly approaching the 1-year anniversary of his deadly nursing home order that contributed to the deaths of thousands of our beloved New York seniors. We've known since last summer that the governor was hiding the numbers, but we now know just how deadly that order was and the lengths that the governor went through to hide the truth. And now the governor's under a new massive scandal. After an investigation into Andrew Cuomo's construction of his namesake bridge is revealed a cover-up of the bridge's structural safety. Andrew Cuomo allowed New Yorkers to drive over an unsafe bridge in order to have an election year ribbon cutting. Republicans have been speaking out of this for years, calling for an investigation. Because every time there's smoke in the Cuomo administration, just under the surface, there's a 4-alarm fire. His governorship has been a decade-long reign of terror that has cost lives, destroyed livelihoods, and threatened the lives of countless others. All in the name of Andrew Cuomo's ego, power, and raw control. And along the way, Andrew Cuomo has been allowed to operate this way because of a cadre of enablers that surround him. Whether they're outright orchestrating the cover-ups or turning a blind eye to what they know, they are all complicit. And this morning I'm here to say it's far time that Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul start to answer real questions about what she knew and when she actually was made aware of things. And Kathy Hochul ran on a ticket with this governor not once but twice. She comes back home to Buffalo and says how she's the trusted number 2 in the state of New York. She's attached her name to his administration as his number 1 deputy. It's time to find out exactly what that job entails. Kathy Hochul's office in the Capitol is just steps away from alleged victims. It is not credible to suggest that Kathy Hochul has no awareness of the way that this administration has been operating. It's time that Kathy Hochul faces the voters, that Kathy Hochul faces the press, and starts answering the tough questions. The governor is refusing to put himself in the physical presence of the media. Andrew Cuomo is controlling questions through his phony Zoom teleconferences, where he gets to cherry pick a couple of hand-picked reporters and avoid difficult questions, like he's done with Buffalo media time and again. Several weeks ago, after it was revealed by Cuomo's top aide, Melissa DeRosa, that they obstructed justice by withholding information from the Department of Justice, I then called for Andrew Cuomo to be impeached for the crimes. The horrific details of his corruption and abuse have only snowballed since that day. Now more than 80 New York State lawmakers have called for Andrew Cuomo's resignation. This governor is unfit to continue service. And with his refusal to go, lawmakers must begin the impeachment process. If it's brought to a full vote in the Assembly, he would be forced from office, pending conviction or acquittal. And Kathy Hochul would immediately become governor of this state. So New Yorkers have a right to know what Kathy Hochul's involvement in all of this has been. Was Kathy Hochul aware of any of these allegations? Has Kathy Hochul ever witnessed Andrew Cuomo harass or threaten any employees? Was Kathy Hochul aware of Charlotte Bennett's official complaint? What did Kathy Hochul think of her administration leaking confidential personnel files to retaliate against Lindsey Boylan, the first accuser? Did Kathy Hochul ever privately level objections to the governor's order on nursing homes that cost $15,000 New York seniors their lives? Did Kathy Hochul ever see the first version of data that was redacted and hidden from the public and from the DOJ? Was Kathy Hochul aware that that data had been altered? Was Kathy Hochul aware of the decision to hide the information from the DOJ, the legislature, the media, and the New York State taxpayers? There were initial reports that indicated Cuomo sacrificed the safety of the bridge in order to open it up in an election year. Did Kathy Hochul ever question anyone in the administration as to what was happening? These are just a few of the very serious, legitimate questions that should be asked to Kathy Hochul, our lieutenant governor. And there is nothing stopping her from answering these questions. In fact, I believe that she, like the governor, has an absolute obligation to the public to be forthright and answer these questions. Kathy Hochul's been very vocal in the past. If you go back on her Twitter, you'll see the quotes, you'll see the tweets. These are inconvenient truths right now on March 10th of 2021. But she said continually, #BelieveAllSurvivors. She said Kavanaugh's confirmation at the time would silence the voices of survivors everywhere. Andrew Cuomo's victims are not silent. They are growing louder by the day. Kathy Hochul's silence, however, is deafening. It's not good enough to just put a BS statement out that takes the company line from Andrew Cuomo, who is trying to shove that statement down the throat of every single legislative leader that still is in his corner. And every day Kathy Hochul refuses to come out and answer these questions makes Kathy Hochul directly complicit in this corrupt administration. So at this time, I would be happy to take any of your questions.
Do you believe the lieutenant governor is sort of in the governor's inner circle, that she would have any actual knowledge of what you're asking about?
Well, the signs say Cuomo Hochul. Every time she comes here and the media salivates all over how great she is, she talks about how she's the governor's right hand and she's working directly with Andrew Cuomo to get so many great things done. Is she there as a goodwill ambassador, or is she an actual government official? She'll lead you to believe that she is in there making the tough decisions and working hand in hand with the governor. So perhaps she wants to admit what her job might have been these last few years. Or does she have intimate knowledge of the inner workings of New York State government as someone one heartbeat away from the office of governor should? I think that she should come clean and answer these questions. Because, especially here in our mutual hometown of Buffalo, she's had an awful lot of people, propping her up as someone that is a real power broker in Albany. So with that comes a responsibility to answer the questions of what you knew and what you knew it. And if you didn't know what was going on in the administration, what the hell are you doing?
Do you think that Kathy Hochul has intimate knowledge of this scandal?
Only Kathy Hochul knows that answer. And Kathy Hochul should answer questions from the press. And not in the same way that Andrew Cuomo, he picks 5 reporters that they clearly greased on the front end, doesn't answer the tough questions, and everything is whitewashed. I mean, that's what this whole administration's been. I've watched broadcasts from your various stations saying how we can't get a sit-down interview with this governor. Everything's got to be on topic. Remember those days when he'd come to UB, have it all set up so he'd answer 3 pre-approved questions and slide out the back door, nothing off topic. This has been like something out of a third world dictatorship for the last 10 years. The walls have to crumble here, and we need the truth. The governor's under now 3 major scandals, and everyone around him needs to answer questions as to what their role and responsibility was to those.
The company line here is there are 2 investigations still going on simultaneously. Why can't we wait until those facts come out?
Isn't it funny how they want to wait till the facts of investigations come out when it happens to be their administration? Yet, they wanted to do everything up to crucifying a federal judge who had a distinguished record of service in in a ridiculous episode in our nation's capital. They took every single opportunity to assail the former president. They took every single opportunity to attack Judge Kavanaugh. And if you read my commentary, I've been talking about the nursing homes. I mean, today's one of the first days that we've unpacked some of this on the sexual harassment scandals, and that truth will come out. And there's plenty of credible people that have put their name to their complaints. I pray that Tish James can give an honest investigation here. I mean, that she's not co-opted. I'm a little concerned at some of the donor history, some of the attorneys that she's picked up, but we have to just hope for an honest and forthright investigation to come forward. But let's not lose sight of the fact that the nursing home scandal, the corrupt order of March 25th that sentenced senior citizens to their death, is under the federal investigation by the U.S. Attorney in Brooklyn, as well as the FBI. That's serious, serious stuff. The governor hired a criminal defense attorney, not for the sexual harassment. He hired Woody Allen's criminal defense attorney to handle things surrounding the nursing homes. There's a lot of lawyers that have been hired in Albany lately. This is serious business. This administration is under three very dark clouds. Kathy Hochul can't have it both ways. She can't come home and tell everyone how much juice she has in this administration and then get away with saying, I know nothing, I know nothing. I mean, I can't believe that the lieutenant governor of this state is nothing more than a goodwill ambassador. That's not the way the Constitution of the state works. And it's certainly not been the public persona that Kathy Hochul's been living.
Do you have an opinion, Nick? I'm sure you do, on the governor was asked this yesterday. I assume you heard his conference. 2 years ago, when allegations came out about then Attorney General Schneiderman, he said Schneiderman should resign. He was asked why, in his case, an investigation should play out before any action taken. Do you have an opinion on his answer he gave to that?
Well, that's the problem is, past performance and comments come back to haunt you. So, in Eric Schneiderman's case, I mean, the allegations were far different. I'm not making any equivalency. There was assault, that was detailed in that New Yorker article, which, I know every person I talked to that read that article was aghast. And Eric Schneiderman did the right thing, and he was gone within 24 hours. But the governor said he was not capable to do his job as the Attorney General, which is an important job, but it's not the governorship. The governorship is, the highest, pressure point, outside of the presidency. This is a serious, serious job, and he's got a lot of distractions on his plate right now. So I think the governor has been very hypocritical in that sort of, rules for someone else, but not for yourself. I mean, he wants us all to just cool it and let Tish James, is this going to take 6 months? Is it going to take a year? I don't know how long an investigation like this takes place, but folks, it's not going to be this spring. We're not going to have her verdict. And I don't think he's going anywhere. I mean, he doesn't seem to give a damn that Andrea Stewart Cousins called for his resignation. Here's the most powerful Democrat in the Senate. There's 14 Democratic senators at my last count that have called for his resignation. I said from the outset, this governor doesn't have the integrity to resign. Any discussion of his resignation is a fool's errand. That's why impeachment is necessary for someone that's, as egotistical and is as big a megalomaniac as Andrew Cuomo.
If the governor did resign and Lieutenant Governor Hochul stepped into that role, I mean, would the party be happy with that, or would you not want her to step into that role until she answers questions you want her to?
I think she needs to answer these questions long before we have a resignation. I mean, I think she has a public obligation. She's someone that's a statewide elected official. She's clearly had a role and responsibility to some extent within this administration. So what is it? There's some that don't think she has much of a portfolio. There's an awful lot of, beautiful profile pieces I've read about how strong a leader that she is. So what is it? Does she have a trusted aide role? Is she in the room? Do decisions get made or not? So just come clean with it, Kathy. This doesn't wait until she becomes governor. And this should be answered today. Her putting out a 3-sentence statement yesterday is not good enough, and it shouldn't be good enough for you either. We should demand the answers of her like people are demanding the answers of the governor. I mean, she's one heartbeat away. Any minute now, he could decide this is too much, and he's out, and then she's the governor. So what role and responsibility has she had for any of the 3 dark clouds hanging over this administration?
So what if she says she didn't know anything?
Then what have you been doing for the last 8 years would be what I would ask. What do you do? What is your role? I mean, and what qualifies you to be the next governor other than the Constitution? If you have no intimate knowledge as to what's going on in the administration, then you clearly don't have much of a role. I guess there'd have to be some sort of reconciliation between the public perception and the reality.
I know you're not calling for her to say this, but if she were to say the governor should resign, doesn't it seem like she's gunning for his job then at this point?
Well, perhaps, but I didn't ask for her to call to resign. I asked for some very specific questions to be answered about what her role has been. What does Kathy Hochul know? What role did she play in any of it? When did she know these various allegations? And that's what she hasn't come clean on anything. She's been in hiding, which is very uncharacteristic for a politician that likes the camera an awful lot.
If she was to become governor, would you be throwing her up just like this? Like if she was an
I wouldn't have an impeach Hochul, sign on the front of the podium. I've been very strong in my calls for the governor's impeachment because I believe he's complicit in obstruction of justice. It has been, pretty clear that when his chief of staff admits to 14 Democratic elected officials in the state that they froze, they hid information, they were worried about prosecution. That's obstruction of justice. That's what got this ball rolling. If you remember back to where we were, I don't even know what day it was. I mean, this is all kind of blended together. And then it's snowballed. Every day there's more news. Every day there's more, and the sexual harassment scandal is far more salacious, and it's giving the tabloids more headlines and more, front pages. But we have a very serious crime, I believe, that's been committed that was the purpose of my call for his impeachment. I'm not calling for his impeachment over the harassment scandal. I'm willing to wait for the facts from the investigation on that. But I believe that impeachment needs to take place because of what happened with the nursing homes in the March 25th order in the subsequent cover-up. And let me just go into a different topic for a minute while we're talking about this cover-up. The timelines look eerily similar for when they started to hide the data. Because there was a lot of chirping last summer that something's wrong with these nursing home numbers. And the governor's pounding his chest that we are in the bottom 4 or 5 states in terms of percentage of nursing home deaths. The timelines of when he decided to go write a book, when he was cutting a deal for the book, and when he was getting approval from the state ethics to earn the outside income for the book, they look very congruent to when the decisions were allegedly made to cover up the nursing home deaths and to strip that data from the whitewash report that was issued by Howard Zucker. That is the most distasteful thing I can ever imagine. If the governor's personal profit motive was the reason for stripping the data from this report, every New Yorker should be calling for his removal. I mean, if he put his own desire for a mid-7-figure check to cover up the nursing home deaths, he can't continue.
Chairman, do you think the impeachment effort that you've been supporting will get any traction at all? I mean, there's no Democrats to join you anywhere, so it doesn't look like it's going anywhere.
Well, Assemblyman Ron Kim has called for the governor's impeachment. I think that there's others that would as well. The Assembly Republicans have offered up articles and have taken the next step. The question that I have for Democrats, and while I'm in Buffalo, we'll start naming a few names, is, you've got several that say they're going to wait for the information. Pat Burke's called for resignation. Well, will Pat Burke call for impeachment? Because it's absolutely clear that this governor will not resign. He's not going to resign unless he's forced to resign, and that will be only when he knows that the votes are there for impeachment. I said on Sunday that Andrea Stewart Cousins' rhetoric that the governor should resign was hollow rhetoric, because she issued it after he already was defiant and said, "I'm not going anywhere. That I have a job to do. That I'm going to go do the budget." And then his team went to work on making sure, they kept everybody in line underneath the surface. And those pressure point calls. I mean, this is going to be a bonanza in this budget, folks. Watch this budget very closely, because all the pet projects, they're going to be taken care of, because he is going to take care of those that are keeping him in office. But Andrea Stewart Cousins and Carl Hastie, they can get this done, but they don't believe in it. I think that she was forced, because she made a statement on Capitol tonight that one more comes forward and he's got to go. Well, then two more came forward. And that kind of forced her hand. She'd have zero credibility left if she didn't call for the resignation. Carl Hastie put out some mash of words that I didn't quite understand if he supported resignation or he didn't. He sure didn't say, "I call for the governor's resignation." But let's talk about the people here locally. Pat Burke has said he wants him to resign. A bunch of the others have been pretty silent. I think that they need to come forward. People like Monica Wallace and Karen McMahon, come forward. Do you continue to support the governor, or do you call for his impeachment? There's three dark clouds hanging over Albany right now. And the only way they're going to clear is if you clear the governor out. So I continue my call for impeachment. I will continue my call for impeachment. And a lot of other lawmakers, I believe, would do the same if they weren't under the pressure they are. But, if they're selling their support for this corrupt governor for a few pieces of silver in the upcoming state budget, then maybe they should be kicked out of office too.
Last question, everybody.
Any other questions?
In regard to nursing homes, your party early on called for an investigation in March 25th reporter. Early on called for a look into the incomplete death data. Now the other side of the aisle is proposing some pieces of legislation to actually kind of reform the nursing home industry. Is your party on board with those reforms as well to long-term change?
And the question would be better left to our legislature and legislative leaders. I'm not in the government where individual bills I can't go chapter and verse with you on. I think everybody wants reforms to what happened, but let's nothing that happens now is going to undo a deadly order of March 25th, and that is the order that sentenced thousands and thousands of New York seniors to their death. And the governor is now profiting off of 15,000 coffins. And his whole narrative that he was the leader, the example, the champion of COVID-19, the one that we should all want to draft for president, it's a fraud, it's fiction, and it's been proven to be. The book company pulled the plug on the book. So nothing that gets passed in the future, there could always be reforms to anything in our health care and to deal with our seniors. I'm very troubled by another executive order that we're learning about, the April 10th executive order that the developmentally disabled were also put in very similar danger, and 552 developmentally disabled New Yorkers lost their lives. Nearly 7,000 contracted COVID because of a very similar order to what happened on March 25th. These are the things in this administration that was supposedly the best in the world, the best and brightest, the virtuous. They sentenced the most vulnerable New Yorkers to death. If the government's not protecting our most vulnerable, and this governor's record on the developmentally disabled is despicable, and it has been for 10 years.
Speaking of the GOP side, how do you see the governor's race shaping up? What are your predictions, and who do you support for the GOP?
Well, I don't make predictions because I have a pretty big voice in the process. So we are casting the widest net possible to elect the next governor of the state of New York. It's been my focus since I announced my candidacy for chairman almost 2 years ago, that I would make the 2022 governor's race my utmost priority, and it has been. And I have, as you well know, as people that have covered what we've done, I have aimed at Andrew Cuomo consistently and constantly, even when he was very popular. And His public opinion numbers were in the 70s. I was out there beating the drum. This administration was corrupt. New York Republicans have been calling for accountability. In Andrew Cuomo's own biography, he has a passage about how if you don't want to be held accountable, don't serve in government. This governor is incapable of holding himself accountable. He's blamed everybody under the sun for the sins that he's committed in this government, the deadly decision that led to the deaths of 15,000 New York seniors. He's blamed God. He's blamed Donald Trump. He's blamed the media, the New York Post. He's blamed the New York Republican State Committee. He's blamed everybody but himself. And you know what? Now there's a great big mirror across the street from the governor's mansion, and he can look in that mirror and see who's to blame for all of these drastic scandals.
Hey Nick, just to flip it, I wonder what you thought about Chris Jacobs' statement the other day. It sounded an awful lot like what Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand had said, that he's troubled, but that he thinks that they should wait before calling for it.
I have stood where I stand. Chris can decide where he's going to be on it. I really have been pretty loud and vociferous in my call for the governor's impeachment long before we even knew of a single sexual harassment scandal. The sexual harassment scandal, I'm very willing to allow that to play out with the Attorney General, and we should keep pressure on the Attorney General for a timeline and for, independence. That independence is the key here. But that doesn't have anything to do with the original genesis of why I'm calling for the governor's impeachment, which is this nursing home scandal.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.